We get a lot of people that are hesitant, especially when they come to see the psychologist that's in the process. They think, what do I need a psychologist for? I'm going to have bariatric procedures. I've simply not been able to make diets work. What do I need a psychologist for? Well, the answer to that, we know that from clinical studies that diets don't work. So it's time to get back to the elements that motivate our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors, i.e., our psychology, what motivates us to eat when we eat. When people reach the point that they come to WLSA, most of them feel a certain way. Most of them feel discouraged. Most of them feel disheartened. They're upset at themselves that they've let themselves get to this point. They feel guilty over the fact that they haven't been able to lose weight or that they haven't been able to use their willpower effectively to stop them from overeating. Most people, they know that in order to lose weight and focus on their health, they need to eat well and move their bodies. But there's generally a disconnect. And what is that disconnect? For a lot of people, it is the psychology of eating. It is emotional eating. And I like to tell them a little story. When we're born, babies are intuitive. We're born intuitive eaters. We know when we're hungry, what our hunger cues are, and we listen to our bodies, and our bodies are able to tell us what and how much they need. We're born to know that we need our mother's milk. Babies are born to actually be able to find it. They cry if they can't get to it. So they give a signal when they're hungry. They get fed, and when they're stopped feeling hungry, they stop eating. At some point, our children in our Western cultures are generally put into a high chair. They're told what to eat and when to eat. For a lot of children, they're also told that they need to finish everything that's on their plate. Some kids are also told that they can't leave the table or they can't have a treat or a dessert unless they finish their meal. So not only are we teaching our children to ignore their intuitive eating principles or tune out or stop listening to their bodies, but we're also teaching them to associate reward with overeating. We're teaching them what emotional eating is. And a lot of people emotionally eat without knowing that they're emotionally eating. People don't understand what emotional eating is and how it's different from regular eating. How is emotional hunger different from physical hunger? Because we've learned to override our innate ability to tell us when we need food and what food we need. Most people, when you ask them if they're hungry, they go back to society's rules and they'll actually look at their watches instead of trying to ascertain from their physical signs and symptoms whether they're hungry. So there's two very distinct different types of hunger: emotional hunger and physical hunger. There is a history of people feeling shame about reaching out for help, but it's being more commonly recognized these days that it's okay to ask for help. We get people who think that weight loss solutions or coming to medical professionals is almost the last resort. And a lot of people have to almost prove to themselves before they come here that they've tried everything. So they try all the diets, they try all the fads, they listen to the professionals talk about what not to eat, what to eat, when to skip a meal, how long to fast for. And unfortunately, what they're not told that is that every time they try one of these diets is that not only are they generally slowing down their metabolism, but they're also feeling powerless. They feel like they need to have this willpower to stay on a restrictive and difficult diet. And then they feel like a failure when they haven't made it work. But really, it wasn't going to work because what's underlying is our emotions, our thoughts, and our beliefs. So there is no shame in knowing that we might need help, knowing that a professional such as myself and the team here at WLSA might be able to give them some solutions, some help, some education to teach them that maybe it's not all them, maybe it's their metabolism, maybe it's genetics, maybe it's simply that society has put us in a position where we got too busy to prioritize ourselves, prioritize our self-care, prioritize healthy eating, The fact that we need to get back to basics and treat ourselves with kindness. The biggest thing is you're not alone. You're not an island. I've been in this role for long enough to know that there are lots of people in a very similar position to you. There is a community here to support you, and they know how you're feeling and can give you a helping hand if you need it to bolster you. There is plenty of support here, especially at WLSA, that have lots of knowledge and lots of empathy for your situation. And no one's ever going to be judged for not doing the right thing or not following the plan or not losing enough weight or any of that stuff. We're here to help our patients get where they want to go. And it's about sustainability and life habit changes. There is support and there's people here who can help you. I want to point out the differences between physical hunger and emotional hunger because a lot of people don't know. I ask my patients all the time, are you an emotional eater? And then I have to preface that by saying, emotional eating is the eating that we do when we're not actually physically hungry. It's in reaction to an emotion. And people say, oh no, when I'm sad, I don't eat. So a lot of people preconceived notion is that the only emotion that might lead them to eat is sadness. But there are a lot of other emotions. And knowing what the difference is between physical hunger and emotional hunger can help. So the most obvious emotion that leads people to the cupboard or the fridge when they're not actually hungry is boredom. Because we're a society now that loves to be busy. We love to do lots of different things at once, and we don't have a lot of time for self-care. So a lot of people head to the kitchen cupboard or the fridge when they're not hungry just to fill a moment, fill a void. So it's important to recognize the emotions that lead us to eat when we're not particularly hungry. The main ones are boredom, loneliness, stress, obviously sadness, overwhelm, anger, frustration. All of these things can lead us to take a quick step to try and relieve an emotion. But we can't take away emotions. We're always going to feel them. It's about how we respond appropriately to them. So knowing what the difference is between emotional hunger and physical hunger can really help when we reach that point. Physical hunger comes on gradually. We get hungrier and hungrier as time goes on, whereas an emotional hunger tends to strike quite suddenly as in reaction to an emotional response to a trigger. Physical hunger can wait a little moment. We don't have to eat right then and there, whereas emotional hunger generally has to be satisfied then and there. It's an instantaneous need for something to put in our mouths. Physical hunger stops when we feel satisfied. Whereas emotional hunger, we don't get satisfied at all. In fact, a lot of us who emotionally eat tend to overeat and then eat a little bit more because we've created another emotion in that response, which is guilt. And guilt leads some of us to eat even more. We feel disheartened with ourselves and we feel guilty. And then those feelings of powerlessness, of guilt and shame that come with overeating. So learning that you're not alone, learning what our intuitive eating principles were, learning to recognize what our emotional triggers are can help us to get back to the roots, back to listening to our bodies, back to trusting ourselves and our instincts, because our bodies know. If we get down to it, our bodies know when they're hungry. They know what to eat, but we've learned to tune it all out. To learn to understand what your motivations are, because our bodies know what to eat and when to eat. We've learned about what intuitive eating principles are, but we need to learn to recognize what we're using food for. Is it a stress relief or is that a reward? Are you going back to the child who was rewarded with dessert when they overate? So we need to firstly recognize what emotions we're linking with food, and then how to better deal with the emotions that we're feeling. Is having a glass of bubbly at 5 o'clock actually rewarding you, or is that making you feel worse? What can you do for yourself in terms of self-care that is actually a reward? I made it through another day. I deserve a treat. Whereas actually treating yourself would be going for a walk or calling a friend or doing something nice for yourself, like having a nice shower and getting into your comfortable clothes or hugging a loved one. Those sorts of things are actual rewards. And then reward yourself twofold because you've done something good for you. A lot of people still think that it's the easy way. Having weight loss surgery or coming to WLSA is a bit of a cop out. But at the end of the day, the only people that actually think that are people that haven't had the procedure or don't know anyone that has, because it's not easy. We can take out a portion of your stomach or bypass the stomach or insert a balloon. But at the end of the day, the only person that's going to be able to change your habits with the support of the team is you. You're the only one that can change those habits. And still, with the tools in place, and that's all they are, tools, we learn to trust ourselves, trust our instincts, and trust in the process. So it's not the easy way out. It's not a quick fix. It's about changing our lifestyle and changing our habits for the better. Society wants a quick fix. Society wants things that are easy, that are not going to take too much effort. It's not going to take too much time. It's not going to be too uncomfortable or restrictive or difficult. But unfortunately, quick fixes are effectively putting a band aid over a problem because diets don't work. We know that from clinical studies, because all they really do is make us feel like we failed and haven't had the willpower to be able to get the results that we expected to get or keep the results that we got. So all they really do is make us feel more guilty about ourselves. We can't put a band-aid over a problem when the problem is generally the elements that motivate our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors, and our beliefs.